Whether you want to have a large company or a small lifestyle business, you must pay attention to the legal aspects right from the beginning. If you don't, there are a number of unintended consequences that can come up. Now, I am certainly not an attorney, which is why I have a special guest with me today. He is the author of the Business Legal Lifecycle. I am really excited to dig into this. You do not want to miss it. Hi, I am Tim Fitzpatrick with Rialto Marketing, where we believe marketing shouldn't be difficult. All you need is the right plan. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. I am super excited to have with me Jeremy Streten from Business Legal Lifecycle. Jeremy, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks so much for having me, Tim. Really looking forward to it.
Yes, me too. And as people may hear, you are in Australia, so it's evening, it's afternoon my time, but it's morning your time.
It is morning my time, and
Yes.
I'm in Brisbane, Australia, which is going to become famous in the next decade because we have the 2032 Olympics. It's a big deal for us.
Oh, hey, there you go. I love it. Well, and it is summer for you guys, right?
It is, yes.
Okay, I always have to think twice about that. So awesome. Well, so are you enjoying the summer weather?
I am enjoying the summer. It's Brisbane where I live is the weather is just perfect and doesn't get really cold for it's probably about a week of the year where you have to wear a pullover or a jumper. I deal a lot with Americans and we call them jumpers, but I know that's something different. But we call them pullovers. So we have about a week of the year where that's necessary. The rest of the time it's beautiful and warm. So it's a great place to live.
It's all good. And my mother-in-law is Australian, and she always, when she refers to the trunk of the car, she's always talking about the boot.
Yeah, there's plenty of those.
Yes. Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to digging into this. Before we do, I want to just ask you some rapid fire questions, help us get to know you a little bit. You ready to jump in here?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when you're not working, how do you like to spend your time?
My probably two main places. One is with my children, playing with them, and the second is reading. I love learning. I love reading and listening to podcasts. So learning is the other area that I spend a lot of time on.
What's your hidden talent?
I think spotting problems in businesses. I do a lot of work in that space, and I love to hear about a problem, look at the situation, and really identify what the solution is to that problem.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Write a book. My business coach gave me that advice 10 years ago, and I laughed at him as a lawyer. And when I came up with this concept that we're going to talk about today, I realized I had a book in me, and it was the best bit of advice he ever gave me.
How long ago did you publish your book?
4 years ago.
Okay. Most people, I have not written a book, but most people I talk to say that the book writing process is arduous.
It is. It definitely is. And I published the Australian version of my book 4 years ago and the American one about 2 years ago. And it is a arduous process, but it's a lot of fun. And as a lawyer by training, which we'll get into, I find that writing comes naturally, but book writing is a whole different beast.
Yes. Yeah. You got to write it so people understand it, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What's one thing about you that surprises people?
I can solve a Rubik's Cube in less than 50 seconds.
Oh my God. I love it. Man.
I don't have one with me to prove that though, but
How long did it take you to get to that point?
I actually couldn't tell you how many tries it took me to do it. But it was a long time of just rote learning every single step. And it's something that I actually use it in my talks to talk about the complexities of business. And so I needed to get it down really quick because you can lose people's interest if you can't do it. But there's a process that you can follow. If you go to the Rubik's website, they've actually got the answer guide. And there's a process that you can follow to learn how to do it. And it's just rote learning it and just doing it time and time again. And I do it without looking at it. And I can do it on the right combination in less than 50 seconds.
Really?
Yeah.
No matter where it is,
yep,
it's still the same moves to get it to where.
Exactly. It's still the same process. And it's a great game with my nephew. He's 12 now, actually 12 in a couple of weeks. When he was around 8 was when I started to teach myself. And I'd actually get him to mix it up and make it as complicated as he could. He'd spend like 5 minutes doing it to make it as complicated as he could. And then I'd solve it in 50 seconds and he'd run away and take it and do it all again.
So what does success mean to you?
Success is having a good life where I'm comfortable and I can spend time with my children whilst building businesses that derive great income and actually help people to achieve my goals.
Where's your happy place?
With my children. Playing with them, spending time with them, helping them learn is really my happy place.
What qualities do you value in the people you spend time with?
So I have 3 core values. One is growth, and so I want people to be willing to grow and to learn. Another one is presence, so actually being present in the meeting or in the conversation. That's really important to me. And the other is loyalty. Not talking behind people's back. That's what that means to me. So I look for those 3 qualities, and it's something that I'm very passionate about, making sure that I work with people that have those values.
So tell us a little bit more. You had touched on this. You are an attorney, but now you also have this separate business, the Business Legal Lifecycle, and the associated book. Just tell us a little bit more about what you're doing, who you're helping, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so as I said, Tim, many years ago now, I started my own business over a decade ago, and I recognized early on that I couldn't do it myself. So I got a business coach, and he said to me, one day you'll write a book. And that's the advice that I was given. And I laughed at him and said, yeah, right. As if a lawyer's ever going to write a book that is actually useful for people. and he just kind of smiled at me. And then over the time of being a lawyer and running my own business, I had 2 matters that I acted for people in. One where a client lost, or 2 clients lost, $1 million of other people's money. And another one where a gentleman almost lost $2 million of his own money. And I got really frustrated because in both cases, if they had just been proactive with their legal advice, they could have solved their problems before they arose, rather than waiting to react to it. And what happened was I talked to them, and we'll get into a bit more about this later, but they just didn't want to get legal advice for various reasons, and we can talk about that later. And their reasons really frustrated me. So at the time, I was doing a lot of reading and learning about life cycles of businesses, and I went through all the businesses that I'd acted for that did things properly and ones that did things poorly, and came up with these 13 phases about what businesses should do from a legal perspective and when they should do it. And when I mapped it all out, and my business partner in the law firm, we went backwards and forwards a bit, I realized I had 13 phases and I had 13 chapters and I had a book. So I had to bring my business coach and say, you were right. Here it is. So the Business Legal Lifecycle is designed to help business owners to understand what they need to do in their business from a legal perspective, to explain it in plain English so they can understand it, and that they can really plan for the future. So there's the book. There's also the tests that we have. So you basically take 31 questions, and it places you within the life cycle. It identifies where you are in the cycle. It identifies what you're missing from your business and helps you identify in the future. And it gives you a really cool checklist that you can take to your lawyer to say, I need these things done. And so we have that, and we're just about to launch it when we're doing this, an education course where people can actually go on and learn about the law. There's workbooks, there's videos, there's a whole course that we've mapped out about what people need to do from a legal perspective in their business. So it's all about educating people, business owners in particular, about what they need to do, why they need to do it, and also who they need to speak to, and who they need to connect with, as whether it's a lawyer, an accountant, a business coach. Who is it that they need to connect with to make sure their business is properly protected?
I love it. So let's dig into this. You had touched on this a little bit. A lot of us as entrepreneurs do not get legal advice. Why do you think that is the case?
I think there are 3 main reasons, Tim. One is people don't know what they don't know. So they're unconsciously unaware of the legal problems. And that's perfectly normal. As a lawyer, even when you go to law school, you don't learn all the problems. So you need something to help you to really learn what those problems are. And so it's really an unconscious awareness that people have. And that's part of what I'm doing, is to make people aware of that. We have lots of free content on our website as well that helps people to learn what they don't know. The second one is, quite frankly, it's people see it as a cost rather than as an investment. So they see it as a cost rather than an investment. They see it as something that, I'll just fix that legal problem later. I'll just, something that those 2 examples that I mentioned before, the people, when I asked them why didn't they get legal advice, it was like, well, I just took the attitude that I'll solve the problem later. I'll fix it up later, and that'll be fine. And it ended up costing the first one, $1 million of other people's money. All that was wiped out because they didn't take that proactive versus reactive advice. And the third reason, Tim, is really around people don't like seeing lawyers. Lawyers use big terms. They use words that confuse people. And this isn't true of all lawyers, but a lot of them, they act like they're better than the client. They act like that they're smarter, and people don't like that. There's a real negative perception of the profession out there, and that comes from a fear that people have. And I've researched this a lot and talked to a lot of people about this. And there's a fear that people have about coming across looking stupid, and really an unknown, and people don't invest the money early on. So they're the three main reasons that I see business owners avoiding getting legal advice.
Those are three really good ones. And I would, the one that really resonates with me is the expense rather than an investment. We talk about that all the time from a marketing standpoint. People see marketing as an expense rather than an investment. And I think there are a lot of aspects of our business that we would benefit strongly from by viewing them as investments, not expenses. So I love that. So we don't get legal advice when we should. We need to be more proactive about it rather than reactive. Honestly, in most cases, would you say by the time we're reacting to it, it is too late?
Yeah, it's in most cases it's too late, and in most cases it'll cost you a lot more in cash to fix the problem than it would have if you had just solved the problem early on. So I think that would be a fair way of looking at it.
Let me ask you this too. Going back to we don't know what we don't know. How, as business owners, what's the easiest way to bring visibility to those things that we don't know that we should?
I mean, the short answer is read my book.
Yeah, there you go.
Take my education course. But even if you don't want to do that there is a lot of content out there, and we have a lot of content on our website that's for free for people to see. So it's really about educating yourself, not educating yourself to the point where you think you know what to do. Because one of the big problems that I see out there is that people they think, we call it in Australia barbecue advice. You probably something similar in the States where you're at a barbecue with your mates and they say, "Oh, we've done it this way, and so you should just solve your problem this way as well." That's great to get as advice, but you should always go and get advice from your lawyer about what you should do, even if it seems like a small thing, because your personal circumstances might dictate what the difference is. And whilst there's lots of great services out there, I won't mention any by name, but everyone would know that there's lots of great document services and all the rest of them. The technology isn't there yet to tailor that to your business. So it's all well and good to go and get that advice and to find that free stuff, but you still need to go and speak to your lawyer. But by doing that, you're arming yourself with the knowledge before you go to see the lawyer.
Yeah.
So then you've got the knowledge to get the tailored advice when you're there with them.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, we all know about, all the legal document services that are out there. The one issue, the problem with that is it's like one size fits all legal advice. And there are nuances and specifics to your business, to my business, and those agreements need to be adjusted accordingly if they're going to be effective.
Absolutely. And effective and it's, as I said, it's one of those things you don't know until you don't know, or until you know it, because until the problem arises, you don't see the benefit of it. So it's definitely something that any good lawyer or attorney will sit down and be able to tailor it to your particular circumstances, but have that knowledge first of all, so you know that what you need in the first place.
Yeah. So what are some of the common mistakes and misconceptions that we're making as business owners?
Well, I mean, if we went through all of them, we'd be here for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Probably the big one, and I mentioned that barbecue advice that we call it over here, is a lot around the structure. So when people set up their business, they don't want to go and get advice from their attorney, their lawyer, or their accountant, and they just go, "Oh, well, such and such set their business up as an LLC or an S corp or whatever," or over here we call them proprietary limited companies, and that's all well and good for that person, but your personal circumstances might be different. And so you need to get that advice. So really the first one is really setting up your structure correctly for you. And whilst in that situation, probably 99 times out of 100, it'll be fine and you'll be able to sort it out. there are nuances that you don't know until you get the advice. So I always say, go and get the advice, get it set up properly to make sure that it fits with your circumstances. If you're the business owner who's starting their third or fourth business, you definitely want to get advice. Or if you're investing in property, you definitely want to get advice, because you want to make sure that you're protecting the assets that you're building. That gentleman I mentioned before that almost lost $2 million of his own money, he bought a bunch of property in his own name and ran his business out of a company, but he was sued in his own name because of some misrepresentation, right? Oh. So because he was sued, all of his property, $2 million worth of property, which he bought by reinvesting the money from his business, he could have lost that all because of the way that he was structured. So get the right advice before you do anything in that way. Another one that I see often, Tim, is with startup businesses, when they start engaging with their clients, they're so eager to get in there and start doing the work. And I get why. I was the same. They're so eager to get in and start doing the work with the clients, they forget to actually document that agreement. And what happens is they go and start working with the client, and then maybe someone in the client's office changes, or the business changes, or circumstances change, and that arrangement is no longer what is necessary for either party, and then people start to change it. And because it's a verbal agreement that might have been changed over time, it becomes very difficult to enforce. So that's a big one that I think that startup business owners need to get right. And even if you're a business owner that's 20 years in, you still need to make sure that you've got that right, so that your contracts are solid, so that you can protect yourself. Yeah. And then the third big one is around employees, and properly engaging with your employees. Again, it's all well and good and very exciting when we're bringing in employees in. And I understand. I run 3 businesses. I get it. The issue comes when there might be a problem down the track. And actually having an agreement in place is really important. And often people will say, it's not worth the paper it's written on. That's nonsense. If it's done properly, it absolutely is worth the paper it's written on, and you can protect yourself going forward. So there's some of the things, but I think probably the big message is to protect yourself by getting the right advice and making sure that what you've got in place is the right thing to protect you in your business.
Let's talk about the business legal life cycle. I think this is probably going to be the longest part, because you said there are 13 steps in the life cycle.
Yep. So 13 phases in the life cycle. I call them phases, steps, same thing. And basically it goes through what you need to do and why you need to do it in the business. So I won't go through all of them, but the first few are all about setting up the business properly. So I call them the startup phases, and they talk about the actual what you need to document in place to start your business properly. And then the next few are what we call the consolidation phases, where we talk about actually let's consolidate your business and make sure that it's getting right. Because when you want to expand, if you have problems in your business, you're going to have problems. And so to answer the question that's up on the screen at the moment about why it's important to have a plan for the future and what should that plan include, it really is around that. It's about building the foundations of your business. Because when you go to expand and do anything into the future, if you haven't built those foundations, your problems will multiply. Just a quick example of that, just from a systems point of view. When we started our law firm, we had a practice management software that was based on a server in one office, and we then expanded to another office. And this was back in 2011, and the internet wasn't great in Australia back then. And so trying to log into that server from the different office was a huge problem. So you multiply your problems. You multiply your problems as you expand. So it's about getting your chocks in place, your foundations in place right. And so that's what the startup and consolidation phases are. They're about the first 6 phases. And then we get into the fun stuff. We get into the expansion. We get into the expanding your business, maybe setting up other premises. And doing that correctly with all those foundations in place saves a lot of hassle for the future. So, and then they're the next 4 phases, and then you get into sale of the business, and you talk about selling the business. So the importance of having a plan is just, it can't be understated that you've got to know where you're going. I like the analogy that the Apollo, the first Apollo mission to the moon, I can't remember which number it was on track for 3% of the time. So it was actually on the right course for the moon 3% of the time. But because they knew where they were going, they had a plan of where they were going, they were able to adjust and get there. And I think that applies for business as well.
I think one thing that you touched on that's super important, that's easy for a lot of people to miss, is when you don't have those foundations in place and your business expands, the legal problems you have are expanding exponentially with that. And so you really are, I mean, you're opening up this gaping hole in your business as you grow, right?
Absolutely. And you do, and it's one of those things that just kind of creeps up on you and you don't even realize that you're doing, and you see it time and time again. And so that's one of the reasons that I developed the life cycle in the way it is, so that you build those foundations so that when you do expand, those risks are massively reduced.
Well, one of the things that we talk about from a marketing planning standpoint is, there is no perfect plan. I mean, you have to put a plan together, start, execute it, and you're making course corrections along the way that are helping you see exponentially better results. Do you find the planning that you're doing from a legal standpoint is similar?
I do find it similar. The life cycle is a very high level of business, right? It's not getting into the weeds of all the little things that you need to do. So it's the higher level exposure of the business and what they need to do in a general sense. To create a tool that delved into everything would just be a behemoth that people would never use. So and that's why we want people to go to their lawyer or their attorney and get the actual specific advice for them. But it's about seeing where they're going. So at a broad level, it works for businesses. And, I analyzed at the time, it was well over 5,000 businesses, and I've had loads of businesses do it since. And, we worked out the successful path that businesses take. It's just, the getting in and doing the weeds will be very specific to the business owner.
Yeah. Got it. Well, and I'm assuming that fourth phase of selling the business, some people, they never get to that phase.
They never get to that phase, but at some point you will exit your business, whether it's by choice or not. And whether you're going to hand it down to family members, whether you're going to just shut it down, right? Which I hope no one actually does that. There should be some saleability to the business. There's got to be some value that you're getting to. And so it's all about, we want people to build before they expand, but we also want them to build for sale, because at some point, as I say, at some point you will exit your business. It's inevitable for everyone. And you want to have yourself in the best position, because Tim, it is, the statistics say that when a business owner decides they want to sell or they want to exit, it's usually 2 years before the business is in a proper state to be able to sell. And that's a really scary statistic, because most people want to sell when they're burnt out or when they're sick or when they just had enough of the business. And it's a whole another 2 years before it's actually in a place where it can be sold. And that's a really bad statistic for a lot of business owners.
That's a long time, right? And it seems like you have to have this on your radar so that you can plan accordingly. Because there are plenty of business owners that take as much money out as possible. But if you're planning on selling your business, that's probably not the best approach. And so you need to plan accordingly, depending on how far out that sale is.
I think that's right. And I think probably the biggest misnomer out there I see in business is you'll be aware, Tim, of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the Stephen Covey classic. And I think it's habit number 2 is start with the end in mind. And I find that people, I do a lot of consulting as well as the life cycle business, and people find that scary. They find it scary as a prospect to think of, what is the end? What does that mean? Because in a lot of people's mind, that means that they're going to pass away. And I take a slightly different take on that, and that's start with an end in mind. Have some goal in mind. As I said before, with the Apollo missions, they were on course for the moon for 3% of the time, but they knew where they were going. They had a goal, and that might change. If you had told me 10 years ago when I started my business that I'd be on here doing podcasts and interviews on Facebook and all the rest of that, I would have laughed at you. But my goals change. So I think it's about having a goal and then reassessing that on a regular basis. But then making sure that, I run a bunch of masterminds, and one of the questions that we went through yesterday when I was doing that was around what's your goal and how well have you communicated that to your team? And then what is your decision-making process? And really, your decision-making process has to be around your goal. Where do you want to get to? And then what are the steps that you need to take to get there?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, having that goal is just so important. Even in law, when I'm advising a client, I don't do a lot of legal advice anymore, but when I do, it's always, what are you trying to achieve first? What's the goal? And then let's work back from that. And I think that if more people did that, then there'd be a lot happier business owners out there and people out there, because that'd help get them to where they're going.
How can you, if you don't have an idea of where you want to go, you're going to just drive around in circles. Exactly. So you have to have an idea. I think the other important thing too, that you touched on is none of this stuff is set in stone. I think what holds a lot of us back is we're like, oh my gosh, I'm planning and putting these things down and this is the way it's got to be. And that's not reality. A pandemic happens, and you gotta shift. Where you thought you were headed is not where you're headed anymore. So none of this stuff is set in stone, but we have to have an idea of where we're going and where we want to end up, because that's our benchmark, right? And then you can work, like you said, you work your way backwards. It's like, okay, well, what do I need to do? What are the things I need to do to start working my way towards that place?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, super important. This has been awesome. I love this. You dropped some serious value. Any last minute thoughts you want to leave us with today?
I think trust your gut is the real message that I want to get out to people. And it's, if you're not sure whether you should do something or whether you should get advice, go and get advice. Yeah, like if your gut tells you that you're questioning whether you should do something like getting advice from a lawyer or from an accountant or from any professional, it's probably telling you that you should. So take the time. Yes, there'll be a cost, but change that to an investment, and you'll get some. It'll save you a lot of money in the future. You may never actually see the saving, but you always do.
It's, well, in a sense, I mean, if you don't see it as an investment, I mean, I guess you could look at it as insurance too, right?
You could do, yes. Yeah. You could look, I mean, we talk a lot in terms of risk. So the report that people can get from our website is a legal assessment report. It's telling you what that is, and it's identifying where the risks are in your business so that you can go and plug those gaps with your lawyer. Or if you don't have one, then we can refer you to a lawyer and attorney as well through our networks. So yeah, it's definitely it's insurance to protect you against risk. Absolutely.
So you touched on this. Your site is businesslegallifecycle.com, and you set up some special resources for our audience at businesslegallifecycle.com/Rialto. What are they going to see when they go there, Jeremy?
So first of all, they'll get a link to take our test. Now, there's a charge of that of $97, but as a thank you for having me on, we'll give that to your listeners for 50% discount. So there's a code there, and all the instructions are there to get on there. There's the ability to go and get the book, and there's also other free resources that people can see on that page as well. We're constantly updating the resources to make sure that they're relevant for what people need. And there's people can also sign up for our newsletter and all those kind of things. So there's plenty of free resources on the website, and plenty of ways to ask questions as well if people have them on there too.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much, Jeremy. I appreciate you setting that up. Guys, if you and ladies, if you've got questions, you want to check out Jeremy's stuff, please head on over there. He knows what he's doing. He's been in this business for a long time. And he's made this as easy as possible to understand and follow, which I always say complexity is the enemy of results. So Jeremy's making it very easy for you. Head on over there. Again, guys, I am Tim Fitzpatrick with Rialto Marketing. If you are not sure what that next step should be from a marketing standpoint to get where you want to go, head on over to our website at rialtomarketing.com. That's RIALTO marketing.com. Click on the Get a Free Consultation button. I would be happy to chat with you and just give you some clarity on where you should be focusing right now based on where you are and where you want to go. Thanks so much. Till next time, take care.